IVM.
TFG Football is an IVM production, and you can also check out their other awesome shows like The Seen and the Unseen, hosted by Amit Verma, where he discusses topics related to economic policies and its impact on our society.
You're listening to TFG Football.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the TFG Indian Football Podcast. Today is a great day. Today is a special day for me because Chiranjit Oja will not be talking. It's only going to be me. Chiranjit, is that right? No response. So all that means is Chiranjit is not on the show, and that is just leaving me to talk about what's happening in the Indian football scene over the weekend and what we can look forward in this coming week. So obviously we have the Super Cup that's going on, I-League versus ISL, da-da-dang. And there we have quarterfinal one being played out over the weekend. East Bengal edging out Aizawl FC. What a game that was. I think even if you did not catch the game live, when you watched the highlights, you know that this game shouldn't have been missed at all. That close of a game. Chances after chances. I think East Bengal did look very strong, especially in the first half. A lot of controversial decisions there, especially the last-minute penalty given away. But obviously, I will not disagree with the decision of the referee. It was a clear penalty, but the winner will be decided in the 94th minute. Extra time. Now, how close could we got being again heading into the extra time of the Super Cup? We've seen too many games getting into the extra time and also to the penalties, but it wasn't to be. And Aizawl, unlucky to lose out. And East Bengal are the first team through to the semi-finals, and we will see how that pans out. Moving ahead, we have games coming up in the Super Cup. So Mohun Bagan will be taking on Shillong Lajong FC. My predictions over here, since Chiranjit is also not available, I think this is going to be a great matchup. Obviously, I'm supporting Shillong Lajong, and Mohun Bagan do not stand a chance. The dependencies on players always cost them, and this is going to be another reason that Mohun Bagan are not looking that sharp as ever. Shillong Lajong, all the best to you. I hope you win. And Jamshedpur will be taking on Goa, all ISL clash there in another quarterfinal. Bengaluru, and so is Bengaluru also being there in the quarterfinal. Talking about Bengaluru FC, we should be talking about the AFC match coming up very soon. Bengaluru will be taking on New Radiant from the Maldives, and Oscar Bruzon is in charge of that team. I think they're doing just fantastic in their local league as well. Looking by how they've been faring, I think this is a great team to come into facing Bengaluru FC. Now both teams have played. They've been undefeated in the Group E so far, and that's going to be interesting. So this leg will be played at Bengaluru. Kantirwa Stadium will be witnessing two unbeaten teams clashing against each other. And just looking at the record of the Maldives league, and New Radiant are unbeaten in that league as well. 10 points from 4 games. That means 0 losses, 1 draw out of that. That means 3 out of 4 are victories for Oscar Bruzon's side. We obviously know how good he can be with teams, and especially with teams who he's been in charge from the season start. So that game is on the 10th. I believe. Yes, that's on the 10th. That's tomorrow. We will get you updates on that match as well. Heading on to a whole new angle of the AFC and FIFA recommendations that have been put out. Some talks and some news rumors being shared on Twitter and other social media that it's unofficial, it's unconfirmed that AFC has put out those recommendations for the merger of ISL and I-League. So we did have a story on our website. Chiranjit did write a take on that. Do go through it if you haven't already. So On the same lines, Chiranjit had an exclusive chat with second division Fateh Hyderabad FC owner Yogesh Maurya, and this is a great in-depth conversation that you want to get into, the nitty-gritties of a second division side, how it affects, what all things can be different for the second division side, because we've always talked about top division, I-League, ISL. It's always the tug of war that who's going to be which league is going to be the top flight of Indian football. But then it's also interesting to see how second division also pans out. And here is an exclusive chat with Yogesh Maurya. Chiranjit is into the conversation. Let's head on.
So, are you enjoying the start in the early phases of the season?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. It's been a good competition.
Yeah, what do you think of the second division league this season? Is it looking more interesting this season because second division ISL teams and all?
Yeah, I think that's been a good addition. I think it's added a new element. It's added more interest. The only thing that I think is not in our favor is the length and the scheduling. I mean, just to play over 2 months and then to play in this kind of weather.
Yeah.
And 10 games is more than last year's first round with the 6, but now the second round, if a team makes it, is only 3 games. The format is also not the greatest, but I'm hoping that over time we realize that we need more games and more time.
But don't you think this sort of gives you let's say, let's assume that Fateh Hyderabad is a club that's trying to cause an upset and gain an entry into the I-League in this season. Shorter top round is kind of more beneficial to you that way, isn't it?
I don't know about that. It just depends. First of all, the format is the format. It's the same for all teams.
Yeah.
But I don't think a shorter season and a shorter knockout format is the best way. I don't think that is the true way of doing it. The best way is, one table and double leg.
Yeah.
You can't achieve that because of the travel and the number of games. And the way we were doing it the last 2 years was actually reasonable.
Yeah.
Because, no one could argue with the last 2 champions. They legitimately were the 2 best teams that won the last few years, Dempo and Naroka.
Yeah.
And, Minerva finished a very close second. So, now it's different. So
yeah.
I'm personally not in favor of a shorter format in second round. We've increased the number of teams, yet we've reduced the number of games.
Yeah. So do you think this is to control cost and just get done with it, do it in a shorter time?
Well, I'm not criticizing anyone here. They had a World Cup year. The I-League and ISL took place at the same time. There are a lot of reasons why we sort of were stuck on the back end of the calendar. And naturally there's some cost issues apparently. So I get that. But I think if we're looking at developing Indian football players, whether you're in the lower division or in the top division, 15 games a year is nowhere near enough. I mean, you've got kids of the same age across Europe and South America playing, 50, 60 games.
Yeah.
I mean, we're nowhere right now. So I keep saying it. I've been saying it for 3 years. We have to figure out a way to increase the number of games, and if it means more regional and local competition before the national round that's structured, then maybe we gotta do it.
Yeah, actually, I actually wanted to ask you about that. You're based out of Hyderabad, where I don't think you have too many quality clubs who can give proper competition to a second division team in the local region. So for you, the best option is to travel around and play in cup tournaments around the country. But do you think there are good enough options for you to get like a good 35, 40 games a season, enough.
You're exactly right. Not letting out, and that's a challenge. Like, we have a pretty young team that we want to get as many games as we can together, and it's difficult because let's look at it from a different perspective. Our last game of last year's second division was May 28th. We played the first game this year on, I think it was March 17th. So you're talking about almost 10 months to the day from the last whistle of last season before you kick off the next year. That's a huge gap.
Yeah.
So, that's difficult to fill whether you're playing in a state league or not. And but if somehow there's a way to put everybody in India on the same calendar, and your local city competition is one level that, say, gets you 15 games, and then your regional competition, which may include some border states that are nearby, the cost isn't heavy, gets you somehow 15 games. Then, coming through that, you qualify for a national campaign, which is another 15 games. Now you're talking, you got 45 games, and if it's a unified calendar, now the technical is in alignment with the commercial, because now your commercial people can go and say, hey, here, this is the schedule, this is the exposure, this is what you can tell a sponsor. So we're missing that, basically. And if you're in a place that has a better organization locally, you can get more games. We don't. A lot of teams don't.
Yeah.
We're in our boat.
Yeah, just spitballing here. You are pretty close geographically to, let's say, Pune and Mumbai, and where there are 2 or 3 clubs. Let's say Pune City Reserves or Mumbai City Reserves, who take part in second division, but they don't. Mumbai City doesn't have a reserve team, I think, right now. But is it possible for a few teams like that who are close by geographically to just band together and form a cup tournament? We went and played Pune City Reserves in preseason because we were looking for a nearby game. Yeah.
But I can tell you, even going to Pune and playing 2 games with them was not inexpensive.
Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about taking your squad, your staff, and, we didn't play with proper recovery. To save costs, we played on less than 48 hours of recovery. We played 2 matches.
Yeah.
So, you have a day to travel. You need a day to recover. You can't play the day after traveling that. Then you have a day of the game. Then you have an off day and then another game. And then you either try and leave that night of that game or you have to stay an extra night. So you're talking about 5 to 6 nights.
Yeah.
Where you're accommodating, 24 plus people. So it's not inexpensive to do that. But the point is the motivation, right? If there's a structure which is oriented nationally, and it's not that every state just does whatever they want to, then there's a different motivation for everyone to participate. And if there's a calendar that's unified, then everybody can organize and take better decisions. Right now, it's just helter-skelter. We didn't know until, mid-February what the second division schedule was. When it was happening roughly, it was last week of February or first week of March, I think, that the final schedule actually came out.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy environment to take decisions on how you plan things. And then, the date for signing players has been extended to May 5th. The integrity of the competition gets compromised because if you try to put your team, we put our team together very early, and that's proven to be possibly a mistake because all of a sudden players become available from higher divisions, and we've tried to improve our team by also signing some of those players, but it's difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah. So, what do you think, like this holding the second division at a different time in a different format with the altered player availability issue? How different do you think this season is going to be for second division clubs, and how different is your team looking from last season?
Well, if you look at the clubs and the reserves, their participation, if there's a desire for supporting a longer season and format, I think that it would be great to play 20 games
Yeah.
If you're going to do a round, a zonal round kind of format, and have, maybe north and south, or keep it divided like this, but play more games. I mean, I think there's enough appetite there. I mean, it gives more reason for even the reserve teams to be together, because it's hard for the reserve teams to get games too. I mean, it's not easy. So that's one thing I think we should do, is extend the season and the length. How are we looking? We're the same. We're a young team. We don't, really go for too many experienced older players usually. We usually sign a few of those like last year, and then we're typically young, and, we don't like to spend too much on player wages. And it's the same way. We're young, but we're exciting. We're interesting. We got some young players that are very exciting. They need games. I think the competition has been good. We were a little unlucky in the first two games, not to at least make a point. And now we've gone 2 games and taken 4 points, which is good. And we're looking forward to the next game.
Yeah. So, Super Cup is happening, and I-League and ISL teams are playing out pretty close games. So it seems like, the quality, the myth of quality difference between the two leagues, it doesn't really stand up. They're pretty competitive with each other. What do you think, given the example of Neroka being there, Aizawl FC being there, of playing in second division and then coming up and playing in I-League? What do you think your club, how do you think your club will fare if you get promoted to I-League right now with this quality team?
I mean, listen, they have 5 foreigners on the field. Let's remember, we'd have to certainly add some pieces, but there are teams and players in the second division who can play in the I-League. There's no doubt. And even there's a couple of players here and there. We have at least one player who I feel is ISL ready, if not 2 now. So the gap isn't as big as people may think. The second thing, obviously, in the Super Cup, it's clear the I-League teams are hungry. They're motivated because these players want to prove something. They don't get as much attention as the ISL teams and players, and most of them aren't paid as much. So, they got something to prove. And I just think all the excuse makers, it just should stop. I mean, we lost 2 games. We got to live with it. You got ISL teams are losing. You played 18 games. I mean, kids the same age all over the world, I just said, are playing, 40, 50, 60. I think in, the case of the top teams, it's more than 60 games when you add, and then you add national team duty.
Yeah.
70 games in a year. And you're telling me that these kids, after playing 18 games, they can't come and play 3 or 4 more games? I mean, it's such a big, big deal. You're getting covered on HDTV, national television. You're playing under the lights in a decent stadium, and you can't go and play 3, 4 more games and put yourself out there and compete. So that's taking the game for granted to me, and I think it's a joke.
Yeah. So of course, there's been a lot of negative attention towards the Super Cup being held. Just being stuck into the end of the season, much like second division this time. It's like they just want to get done with it with the organizing. But coming back to
but hang on. You just said something. I mean, listen. They had a World Cup year. The 2 leagues were played simultaneously. Maybe they need some time to figure out how to. It's a fair point to play the cup during the year. I like that, but give them some time to figure out how to organize that. In the meantime, this competition can offer something good. If the attitude is always, negative going into something, you're going to get negativity out.
Yeah. How
about, hey, let's go play? You only played 18 games. I mean, just for the development of the Indian players, you need to play more games. I'm sorry, but, these players are getting, housed in 5-star hotels. They're getting treated like, it's Messi and Ronaldo here. And you can't go and play 3 or 4 more games? Oh, we're making such a big mountain out of this.
Yeah, true. Agree.
Competition.
Yeah.
Go out and play.
Yeah, true. So it's just looking at how the season.
And it's just a bunch of whining. I'm sorry, but it's also disrespectful to all the people who are going out there and not getting paid anything and volunteering their time. So many parents, coaches are out there on these grounds, and you can't go out there and play 3 or 4 games with the type of money you're getting paid and the attention.
True.
It's a joke.
True.
It's a joke to me to hear that.
So, Ivo, how do you think Super Cup would benefit if it was expanded to include second division teams? Like early on in the season, you get to play qualify.
I don't think you need me to answer that. It's like any cup. It just creates more interest. You have more teams getting an opportunity to get a platform and play the best teams. When you play the best teams, you get better. I mean, that's the idea.
So, you are in a situation where a full season. I mean, we spoke a few months back on the podcast, and you explained how having a full season team doesn't really work out for most second division clubs. And you have a even shorter season this time. Maybe it will be better next time. We're hopeful for that. But you're in a situation where playing in the second division doesn't give you enough space to do constructive work with the team or the players. So going up there and playing in the I-League is a big step up. For a club to do all that and also get more attention and be in the limelight. But again, we have. You know where I'm going with the. We're going to have a restructuring, and that it's not going to be any more promotion, relegation, and all of that. It seems like that's what this AFC FIFA report that got submitted a few days ago. It's a bit complicated whether it got submitted or not. Some AFC and FIFA bigwigs have come out and said it's not official. But then I have confirmed independently that it is official. It is a final report, which for some reason is being denied from the top. So, assuming that that's a legit proposition made by AFC and FIFA that let's have a unification in 2019-20 and no more promotion relegation for now. How does that make you feel as a second division club or a lower league club? Because maybe in this season, next season, you do win the second division and suddenly you are in the top division and suddenly you are maybe being told you won't get to play in the top division. Long question.
Well, I mean, there is no person who's a fan of sports and is a fan of football around the world who can honestly tell me that promotion and relegation is bad. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson, he was asked this question once, and I forget his response. He's something like it would be the. He said
it would be suicide for lower league clubs, especially championship clubs.
It's the best system because obviously it's creating a motivation for all teams and the other teams not to get dropped.
Yeah.
So, no, as a sporting fan, I don't even think the teams who are protected would tell you from their heart that it's good not to have promotion and relegation. It's antithetical to everything that sports is supposed to be about. Right? So, I mean, that'll tell you what I think. But, there's commercial interest. People are investing a lot of money. They have a right to have a say with how they want to protect their investment. So, I understand all the arguments on the side of not having promotion and relegation. I really do. I can appreciate that. But it's, for me, as a purist, and just as somebody who likes competition, and it just goes against everything in my body and my DNA not to have it.
All right, that's some deep talk, but not too deep already. It's only halfway through the conversation, and we will hear more from these two guys talking about Indian football, what could be possibly going wrong. As I'm assuming the merger is already in transition there. The work is also to be beginning in the background, and we will hear more on this we will take a break right now, and on the other side we will continue talking to Chiranjit continues talking to Yogesh Maurya of Fateh Hyderabad FC. Come back to us after the break.
Shunyawan, 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 Shunyawan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Welcome back, listeners. We are in conversation with Yogesh Maurya of Fateh Hyderabad FC. Chiranjit continues to talking to him on how this affects the second division clubs. It's important to know the perspective of second division. That's going to be an open league, obviously, down the line. That's what we hope for, because second division will have promotion relegation. That means two teams from either two or multiple or one or whatever will be getting a chance to enter the top division of India, and that will also mean second division will get two teams out of the top league, the top flight, being relegated into the second division. So it's interesting to know the thoughts about the second division club here. So Chiranjit continues to talk to Yogesh Maurya. Let's head on to the conversation.
So what I was saying is that the argument against it is that some clubs need that amount of security because of the huge investment that they have made in the sport, so that they are encouraged to make that investment and the sport can grow initially. Is that a legitimate points to make, you think?
Yeah, I don't think that's an unfair point based on the way they've structured the ISL and the demand of investment. But remember, a lot of I-League owners have been investing as well for a long time, and their money is valuable to them as well. So to just arbitrarily relegate anybody who's not in the ISL is also, that's a little unfair. I think anyone can see each other's point.
Yeah.
But let me tell you one thing, Chiranjit, that I can see, which I don't think, again, that I'm saying anything that isn't black and white obvious. Look, the player salaries have escalated to an unbelievable point now.
Yeah.
So we've created a league, the ISL, which is wonderful. I mean, the competition is better in terms of the organization, the marketing, the media angles, the pitches, the type of foreign players who are coming here. You've seen some really interesting coaches come here. But in this structure, we've created a system where, from what I can see, a lot of the players are being paid a hefty amount if you mark them to market against other players globally. Okay? So the challenge here is the cost structure that's been created because of the wages which have been escalated by the investors. So,
but that is partly due to some ISL teams not having a good scouting network, and they're just going for established standard.
But what is but? If you're going to escalate the pricing of the assets because the money supply has gone up, then you're going to get this kind of cost structure. And listen, it isn't a miracle that these teams are losing in the Super Cup.
Yeah.
All right, these have been competitive games. Yes, can you argue that the ISL teams seem less motivated, and if they were more motivated, maybe they would have made some of these games? You can argue that. Okay?
But that's motivation. You can't quantify motivation, right? I mean,
that's what I'm trying to say. On paper, yes, you have to, on balance, on paper, I would say the foreigners in the ISL are better. I would say the majority of the Indian players you could say are better, but it's not as big a gap as you think.
Yeah.
That's what the Super Cup has shown. Now, one is giving you X for so much cost. The other is giving you Y for so much minus cost, right?
Yeah.
So, a little of this is our own doing in how we structured things. We've made the decision to pay what we're paying as owners. Now, I'm in the second division, and we don't have the means. I mean, I understand someone who's putting in that kind of money exponentially more than me. I completely respect that they want protection, but down in my level, where we're not even given any attention, really, very little. It's gotten better, but our games aren't televised. Okay, there's not much coverage. We're putting in just solely based on our passion. There's really no protection. The format changes every year. The schedule changes every year. We have to fight against losing the core of our squad because of the time gap between the start of one season and another. So anyone who's investing is investing in a treacherous kind of situation, whether you're an ISL owner, an I-League owner, or a second division club, or you're just an academy.
But there's the flip side to that restructuring argument, is that it's also going to standardize the lower leagues. So whether it's League 1 or League 2 below ISL, maybe there will not be a direct promotion available to ISL, but the leagues will be better organized, they will be better marketed, they will probably live stream the lower
I'm
leagues.
not against I very early,
and more matches.
The first plan, pardon me, but the first plan when we spoke earlier, I told you I was in favor of it. I didn't have a problem that there wasn't promotion relegation. You asked me a question of how do I feel about it? As a purist, of course I would never support that kind of proposal. But in terms of is it good, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is what we have now. Now, for the second division, this alternative isn't great. But if you're talking about keeping two leagues the way the ISL and I-League are running concurrently, honestly, I actually don't think it's the worst system based on what I've seen.
So you think having two leagues as separate is sustainable in the long run? Is it?
I actually don't see why it's such a big problem when I look at what's going on this year. For the second division teams, it's not great, right? The merge situation is arguably better for us because of the reasons you pointed out at this moment. But if the second division, getting the second division a longer schedule and better, a better calendar and a better format, that's should have nothing to do with whether it's one league or not. That should happen anyway. If we're trying to develop players and we're considered the developmental kind of side of things, shouldn't that happen just because it should be a part of our technical plan? So
I mean, in an ideal world, we don't have to make that promotion relegation trade-off, but we get a more standardized and better organized lower division. But so you just taking on that on the thread that you said, it's maybe it's okay to keep the two leagues separate. We have I-League matches happening at 2 p.m. on weekdays because the best slots go to ISL anyway, for I-League clubs or even you, I mean, I'm pretty sure your players don't want to go out there and play at 2 p.m. or 10 a.m. as you sometimes have to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a challenge, but listen, Morocco and Aizawl got 10,000, 15,000 people coming at 2 p.m.
Yeah, but they're playing because they didn't have floodlights. If they had floodlights,
I know that, but they're still filling their stadium. I'm only pointing out to you that even with the unfortunate timings, if you build a football culture and have a football culture in your region, which is spectator oriented, you'll be successful with.
The East Bengal Minerva Punjab match Monday 2 p.m. That got sold out at Barasat, and then there was a protest against the home team. So it's like that. But just looking at that, India doesn't really seem to have that option of keeping I-League and ISL separate for long, because there is that clause in the report that says India might get suspended, Indian clubs might get suspended from participating in international competitions if there is not a unification by 1920. So,
well, obviously that's going to be in there, because if FIFA allows 2 leagues to continue, what do you think some of these other countries, people are going to want to start new leagues?
Yeah.
And they're going to say that we should get Premier or whatever, the top division status assigned to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why, FIFA, by its statute, is basically saying what it has to. You have to have 1 league. I mean, I know in Indonesia they had suspended them, right?
Yeah.
When there were 2 leagues. And obviously they can't allow this to continue very long, because there's going to be people in other countries who are going to say, hey, why can't we start another first division league?
Yeah.
Right? So it is what it is.
Yeah. And also there is that promotion relegation timeline that we have in place. And that is what sort of interests me as a fan to get your perspective on, is that, okay, let's say within the next season or 2, you make it to the next level. It may be I-League, it may be League One, right? And there is no way to even if you win, you don't get to get promoted to ISL, right? Now there is scenario A and scenario B. Scenario A is promotion relegation is going to come back, but you don't have a season or a year on the table, that you don't know when it's going to come back. And there's scenario B, that you can't get promoted now, but you know that 5 years or 6 years down the line, they're going to open up promotion relegation. How would you approach both situations, both scenarios here?
Well, in both scenarios, you're basically saying, in one, there's no promotion and relegation. In the other one, it's coming, but it's going to be a few years down the road. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, one you don't know. It may be next year, but there's no year on the table, which is kind of how AIF officials have been treating it. They have been saying, there's going to be promotion relegation later again, but
I think that for me and our football club right now, to set out and say we're going to get promoted is it's very difficult to do that with the resources we have in our approach. And I've told you all the challenges that are associated with doing that from our region. Okay. So, number one, even if they say it's going to happen on this date, there's only going to be 1 team or 2 teams or whatever it is that get promoted anyway. That's the first thing. So you're not guaranteed to win the competition and get promoted. What I do is do what I'm doing now. We have a young team, and we don't get into contracts with players that we can't afford. It's basically the rule. And if we were to somehow get up to the I-League, whatever, this year, next year, year after, whenever that is, we follow the same policy. We keep playing young players, and you have to mix and match with a little of experience and try and survive and stay up and keep developing younger players and building assets.
But I just wanted to get you into the nuances here with you, because scenario A, you don't know when promotion relegation is coming back, but you want to get promoted. Like you really as a lower league club, you want to get into ISL. So there's only one way open to you to get into ISL is to buy into it as an expansion team and pay franchisee fees. So that's a very different course of action that you have to pursue. And on the option B, if you really want to compete for a promotion, then that 4 years down the line it's going to open up again, so you can have a financial model where on that season you suddenly become very competitive and try to win your way up to the ISL.
I think that right now we're on option B for now.
Yeah.
If we're using our resources right now, we're building our infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're invested in our premier sport business, which now has over 1,000 children in it. It's going to grow.
Yeah.
And that's a revenue stream coming into the club. We desperately need our own infrastructure for a lot of reasons. We're putting our money into that. Player wages are restricted for that reason. And I'd rather take, as of now, from everything I see, I like the slow and steady path. I like that 80% of our team is under the age of 23. I think it's a better way for us, given my situation, to go and keep building experience, keep building these foundation blocks that we have. And if at some moment investing and buying in presents itself and it makes sense for us, maybe we'll do it. If it's the other way, maybe we'll make a plan to try and do it that way. But I just feel from everything I see, our approach works for us, which is slow and steady.
Yeah, but it's about that. I'm just trying to get into that motivation factor once again. That some clubs,
of course, you have to have an ambition.
Yeah,
I mean that's what I was getting at when I answered your question about promotion and relegation. Initially, I told you it's just against everything that to me that competition is about. You have to have an ambition and a desire that drives and fuels every action in your club, off the pitch and on the pitch.
Yeah, but there are different kinds of desires at work here. There's that potential desire from some clubs to just get to the situation that, okay, we're going to invest, we're going to buy into a franchisee that's going to create a sudden burst of investment, maybe in infrastructure, maybe in whatever way in the local football scene. And there's that other kind of desire where they want to develop the team and be competitive so that when the time and opportunity comes, they can win their way up, right? So it's two different kind of desires that get stoked by either having a year on the table when the leagues are going to open up again, and one not having it. So which do you think works better? It's two contrasting philosophies. Which do you think can work better for Indian football, not just for your club necessarily?
No doubt to me, the second scenario is a much better way to do it, but it forces one into much longer term thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a hard one because I get it. There's a lot of demands for now and now. I understand that, and now the investors are in the ISL and I-League for quite a big sum. Even the I-League owners, it's not inexpensive to be in there. Yes, it's probably value for money when you compare it versus the ISL, but there's demands to get certain results now. I can understand that. The latter way of doing it requires a lot more patience and a lot more willingness to invest in youth and use funds a little bit differently than player wages. And that's something that may not fly.
So, do you think you think for Indian football to develop, that second scenario is more effective than just giving?
No doubt in my mind, based on everything I've seen, the second scenario would be a wiser move. But look, there's a lot of investment appetite, so you can't. And people wanted to invest in the Indian Super League. If someone had gone to all these owners and said, hey, we're going to ask you for 40, 50 crores a year to invest in youth development and infrastructure development, you may have not gotten the type of buy-in that they got. So, you also have to kind of move in the direction where the money supply is. The market wanted this. The investment market wanted this. So I wouldn't fault anyone for us going ahead with this in Indian football. I think it was going to happen. The only thing I'm pointing out is the consequences of all this is, and I don't begrudge any player for getting paid what they're getting paid. The consequence of all this is we have overpaid players. And that creates a vicious cycle to support this. And if you're sitting in the shoes I'm in, with all that uncertainty, you can't take the right decision as to whether you should step on the pedal and accelerate or wait. If you're flush with certain financial resources, then the decision to me is clear. You should buy in. Then the decision is clear. You should definitely buy in. Have those kind of resources.
But then again, if you have a year on the table, that might discourage teams from buying in because, hey, the leagues are going to open up 3 years later. So why would you spend?
Of course. And that's the fair argument to the investor who's put in all that franchise fee. that all of a sudden now it's opened up and people don't have to pay a fee. I completely respect that argument, as I told you. But like I said, we've created this situation and again, I don't mean any disrespect to anyone, okay? I'm not an ISL owner. I'm not an I-League owner. I own a small team in the second division. I operate on a very small budget. These players are getting overpaid. And I say that from not just a commercial, economic perspective. I say that just based on technical valuation of players on a pitch. And that creates, once that happens, it creates a problem.
Yeah. But do you think having an open league sort of mitigates that situation? Because going back to, before ISL, you had clubs like Dempo, East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, Churchill, who used to pay players a lot. And then you also had the other smaller clubs who did not pay their players that much money. But because there was no standardized financial system, everything just worked out on its own.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you got to look at, there's always going to be some clubs who have better financial resources and are going to pay players arguably more than they're worth. But also some clubs, I think, are a victim of their own success. The players who they want know that it's a big club and they're going to ask for more money.
Yeah.
Okay. The valuation is just going up because it's I'm sure Bangalore has to pay a premium because they're Bangalore.
Yeah.
Now they're so successful, it's difficult. So you can't begrudge them for having to pay out certain money for players. I can completely understand that. But to go to your point, there is a way to build teams on a budget. It just takes time. It takes patience. It takes experience and expertise. And, I think that having promotion and relegation won't necessarily change the habits. I don't think that has the big impact on the player wages because you can just see the activity that's going on since the ISL ended. I mean, or even before it, some of the new player contracts that have been signed. I mean, there's flush capital. Teams want to compete and get that opportunity to be in that top four and maybe win and play in the AFC. And teams are throwing money at these players. It's very clearly happening. Now, whether there was promotion and relegation, I don't think that would change. Now, in fact, it might even increase further. Because it's not about the structure, why this has happened. This is about, like I said, it's the want. What do the investors want? They want results now, and I think the temptation is to go with, quote unquote proven players. And you mentioned scouting. It all plays into the fact that take a look at Pune. I mean, they spent the least money in the draft, and they finished top four. And if they weren't for a couple of unlucky results, they might have finished higher. That's impressive. But Rudyam has. You're talking about 15 years of experience. It takes a lot of experience. He's proven himself over and over. He did that at Bangalore too. People said Bangalore spent a lot of money. They didn't the first couple of years. Yeah. So it takes that experience and knowledge and ability to do it that way.
So you think having that kind of a system in place which incentivizes clubs to just earn that experience, go through that early initial pain and learn from it and slowly get on a path for development rather than just throwing money at everything and getting things, expecting things to be solved.
Yeah, okay. So you're I almost there. You're touching right on it. I think that if you expand the number of teams, like I said, you're always going to have the economically flush teams, right, who are going to invest more in their assets. But you're going to have more clubs who are willing to jump in the game and play, if you want to call it Moneyball, and give it a shot with whatever resources they can afford and try and compete. Because going back to what you said, there'll be an ambition and a motivation to achieve something.
Yeah.
And that's how it is in all the leagues. There's big clubs in all the countries who have bigger slices of the revenue pie.
Yeah.
And they invest more. the bigger clubs. The ones on the bottom, I mean, now in places like the Premier League where the revenue share is increased for the television and it's gotten greater and greater, even the quote-unquote bottom of the table teams have good budgets to invest in. On any given day, they can beat a top-of-the-table team. So that sort of parity has increased in terms of evening out the competition more. But here in India, we don't have those kinds of revenues to share yet at this moment. But if you increase the number of teams and add promotion and relegation, I think that the total pie goes up, the total valuation, and the bigger clubs get a bigger valuation. It's like, there's a saying, if you lift the bottom, the top goes higher. So I actually think the one big advantage of adding promotion and relegation for the big clubs is their valuation should go much higher. Yeah. Because they're the most valuable amongst so many clubs, right? Yeah. So that's how I look at it.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, you brought us back to that idea of expansion. Now, that AFC FIFA report also has chalked out an expansion process, so to speak. They want the top division, which will be ISL, to expand to 16 teams by 2022, maybe, or 23. So now they have, there are two ways to do that. One may be just to keep the leagues open. You don't relegate anybody, but you promote somebody from the bottom, right? Every season. But there's the other idea is to just add expansion teams every season. Right. So one has financial benefits, the other keeps the leagues open and incentivizes the lower leagues. And basically, we don't have that problem with promotion relegation anymore. But then again, just allowing, opening up that route for promotion, that a lot of people are concerned that might discourage the teams which have already bought in, right? And they would think that our investment is no longer, we pretty much invested for nothing. So that way the money might sort of start drying up. If you is what I'm saying making sense to you right now?
Yeah, I like I said, I understand that argument. I really do. But again, I would still argue in the long run, it actually will increase the value of the bigger clubs. Remember, they've had a head start.
Yeah.
We should be way ahead of anyone else who's looking to come in. If that's not true,
I think you have stumbled upon a quandary because I don't think that's very true in the practical sense.
Well, there you go then. So you made my point for me, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's like
saying. So then what I've said is we've artificially created this, right? We've created this situation.
Yeah.
Because that's where the investor appetite was. So now it's being artificially protected.
Yeah.
I understand why, right?
So then there is this other sort of on the radical side. There is this idea that's floated around is to just mash ISL and I-League together, and suddenly you have an 18-team league, which I think is going to be competitive. It's going to be great to watch, and nobody gets forcefully relegated. And then you have two rule systems. So the teams which are paid in their franchise, if you don't get relegated, and you have two clubs who have not paid their franchise fee but are there by merit, two of them get relegated, and you promote two clubs from the lower league. Is that a fair solution, do you think? Or like having two rules for clubs in the same league, it kind of creates more schizophrenia in the system?
I actually think it's not a bad compromise, to be honest with you, because it does give that protection to those owners who've invested. So I don't think it's a bad compromise. But you got to remember something. Putting on the type of marketing and the standard of media and in-stadium experience that the ISL teams have to live up to costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a big investment. And that's a big ask from I-League teams, too. So if they're going to maintain that standard, you're asking I-League owners to figure out how they're going to invest more. And I'm not convinced the sponsor revenue pool is necessarily going to pick up, from the expansion is going to pick up all that value right away. from the sponsor market.
I might want to disagree with you slightly here, because I've spoken to, like, there have been some I-League club owners have expressed concerns over the time that the reason they can't get good sponsors is because they did not have a schedule or a list of matches early on.
No, that's a different point. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
The sponsorship in the ISL is more than the I-League, no doubt. What I said is, I'm not saying just by expanding that all of a sudden it's a linear correlation that you're going to be able to cover up what you need, right?
Yeah.
I still believe the amount you have to subsidize as an owner is going to go up because the standards and the demands are higher.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of logistical expenses, you think like better accommodation for players and having a better structure within the club for management and the marketing and all that. By that sense,
even the pitches. I mean, look at the pitches in the stadiums, and you have to play under the lights. You got to turn those on. You have to have increased security, right? And you know, the fee that whatever the clubs are paying is being utilized clearly. Right?
Yeah.
This is a very high standard of production that is going on for the ISL. Right? The coverage is really excellent. So that has to get paid for somehow.
Yeah. So then, we see the positives and negatives of both arguments, but we're still in the limbo because we don't know whether the report is going to be accepted finally. Even if that report is accepted, Federation will make changes before implementing it. So as a second division club owner, do you think this system, sort of gives you your due for being there and trying, for being there and competing? I should not have said trying, but just, being a part of the system. Are the second division clubs getting their due? This fixture aside, this is a abnormal season, but, overall.
Look, we're no different than all the clubs. Everybody wants more somehow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said before, I still think the second division is great value for money. And if your mission is to help develop younger players and build a football club and build a football culture, while kind of trying to make yourself sustainable, the second division is great value for money. Even with the format changes and the things that I, have observations about.
Yeah.
So that's why we're in it. If I look at the comparative costs, we're getting decent enough recognition and opportunity, and a lot of our players are getting a bigger platform.
Yeah.
So we see that contribution we're making. I'm very satisfied with that. I'm always, obviously, though, like everyone else, hoping that over time we're able to get more out of it.
So it's all about investing in the future.
For us, it is right now. I mean, that's just the approach I've had to take. I mean, like I said, doesn't mean I wouldn't accelerate. But look, in this very long conversation we've had now, we've pointed out the fact that we're in a very uncertain environment. And even when you're in a certain environment, there's a lot of uncontrollable factors.
Yeah.
So decisions are incredibly difficult to make, and it has commercial implications. So I still feel, after everything we've talked about, that the best approach is, like you said, invest for the future.
Yeah. So it's okay that if you don't see a direct path for now to go all the way up to the big ticket league, would you be? How long would you be willing to carry on without a path to the top division if we have a system where there is no promotion to the top directly?
Don't know.
Do you think?
Infinitely, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Because it just becomes antithetical to ambition at some point, right?
Yeah.
But right now, we're getting a lot of satisfaction that we've been able to, in a short period of time, contribute some younger players who were unknown, and also help some other players resurrect their careers. That's quite a bit for a new team and a new club in a city that has had a very dormant football culture for many years.
Mm.
That's quite a bit of a contribution for us to make on the resources we have.
Mm.
And now we're quite satisfied that we're going to be contributing our infrastructure, and we're quite satisfied that we are operating in schools and teaching physical education to the highest standard in the world now.
Yeah.
Now, when is it not enough? It's a good question, but certainly we wouldn't want it to be like this forever.
Yeah. But, it brings us back. Last time we spoke, you spoke about the stadium that's coming up and other plans. How much has it progressed since then? Do you think if next season onwards you have a full-length, double-leg second division league, that could be organized on your own stadium?
Yeah, it'll be at our home ground.
Nice. So
absolutely.
So you're nearly there?
We're breaking ground in a few months.
Nice. So it's all then falling into place for Fateh Hyderabad and slowly trying to build up the football culture that's been that's sort of eroded over the years in Hyderabad. What do you really see a response from the community so far yet? The old fans that used to be around the football scene over there. Are you pulling any of that old crowd back, and do you see any new crowd?
I mean, we have a great following. It's very organic.
Yeah.
It's very local. It's very community oriented. It's a long road, but people know us. We're in the city. We're in front of, like I said, we're in all these schools. We're in front of parents in the community, children. We have a lot of fans. We're in that way, we're a very local club. All our youth teams are kids from Hyderabad, and Telangana parts of Andhra. So, in that way, we're a very, very locally oriented club.
All right. It's been great to speak to you once again. I think we've broken an hour. We did that last time as well. And we just get into the detail every time we get down to it. So thank you once again for speaking to us, and best of luck for the season ahead.
All right, Chiranjeev. Thank you.
Yeah, hope you just make the impossible possible and get into I-League.
Do our best. Cheers.
Thanks.
All right, that is some intense conversation, and yes, and if you are also interested, and you can also find out what's happening more on the Indian football scene. You can drop in your comments. You can share whatever you like. Feel free to let us know how you how this the AFC FIFA recommendations might affect Indian football. Do let us know your thoughts on that. On that note, that is a wrap for today's Indian football podcast. We will come back to you next week with more interesting conversations. If not, Chiranjeev will be back. So let us know via comments what do you think about the Super Cup. Who do you think can be the winners who can head into the semi-finals? I-League versus ISL. All right, if you're listening to us on YouTube, do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and you can also download IVM Podcast app, which is available on Android and iOS for many such shows like the TFG Indian Football Podcast. The SoundCloud medium is also available if you would like to hear the podcast. SoundCloud and iTunes, you just have so many options to listen to us. And all right, that's a wrap, and we will catch you again next week. Till then, bye.
As you can see, we have a podcast listener in his natural habitat. Billions of years of evolution have led him to this point. He's on his way to work, and listening to podcasts makes his miserable day better. He will now head to work and use all his knowledge to communicate with other colleagues and possibly future mates. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcasts.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out all the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.